Hello folks, I'm the Ghost with Knife, and welcome to hopefully the beginning of a new series on the channel. As you see in the title, today we're going to start our adventure into Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Why? I've been looking to play a digital card game for a while, and I can't do Snap because it's on my phone, but thankfully Master Duel is on the PS4, and I've been playing it for about a week or two on my phone, not realizing I could play it on PS4. And if I don't hurry through this, there's going to be something that pops up as we kind of sit here. So give me a second, and let's get right into it, and let me explain to you my Yu-Gi-Oh! Story, and what exactly we've got going on here with my account. I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh! When I was a lot younger. I played originally during like the GX era, when Yuria, the Lord of Searing Flames, was just released. I was at the pre-release when that card was released, and I actually got my hands on one. It was super cool. But I got into Yu-Gi-Oh! Back in 2011, during the Synchro era, when Black Wings and Six Samurai were running rampant. So I haven't played Yu-Gi-Oh! In 12 years, until like a week ago, when I had heard Master Duel was on PS4 for free. I'd already been playing it a little bit on my phone, and I was just like, it's gonna be like Snap. I can't record anything for YouTube, but I can just have fun with it myself. And then I found out, no, matter of fact, you can play it on your PS4, and I could link my account off of my phone onto my PS4. And that is how we got here. Back in Yu-Gi-Oh! 12 years later. 12 years is a lot of time for a card game, so I know a lot has changed, and there's a lot that I have had to sit through and try to relearn. And I just kind of want to show you my experience so far, and just have some fun on this game. Just show some wacky deck ideas, and just show my experience visiting all these archetypes that may be classics for a lot of people, but are brand new to me, like this archetype in the background, which is my background. All these cute looking ghosts and ghouls. Anyways, before we get any further into what we're going to be doing on this video, I want to go ahead and show you my profile. As you see, I am the Ghost Knife. I can't get my entire username in there, it's depressing. And my little buddy there is White Baking, and all I'm saying is let him cook. And as you can see, we do have a few replays. We'll get into those in a minute, just so you can see kind of what I've been going through as I've started all the nonsense. So outside of that, what I've been trying to do is just trying to find decks in the shop that are kind of easy to play or that I can understand. And the decks that I am having success with understanding is the Dragon Maid deck. If you know anything about old Yu-Gi-Oh! Back in 2011, there was a deck that used to be out there called Gladiator Beasts. And there are these monsters that specialized in doing a bunch of shenanigans in the combat step. And they like to go in and out of your deck and just doing a bunch of nonsense in combat. And Dragon Maids are kind of like that. They have this thing when you summon them where they do something, and then in the battle phase, you can return them to your hand and special summon a higher level Dragon Maid from your hand or graveyard. So basically, you get a bunch of these in your hand or your graveyard. You get a bunch of the bigger ones like this one or this one. And then your Dragon Maids essentially transform into dragons in the combat step. And then just beat the crap out of your opponent. And this is like the big card of them all. It's Dragon Maid Shio. Really cool card. Really great art. Just great effect too. And this is the deck that I have been using to get back into Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it's just a very different experience to what it was 12 years ago. Outside of that, I've been trying to do something of my own brew with what I have, which is with branded monsters, which are like these big fusion dragons that all start because of this guy, the Fallen of Albaz, which is like this weird dragon twink. I don't know. And I've been having a little bit of success with that too. And outside of that, I've been doing the ritual event that's been going on, but we're going to talk about that in a different episode. So as you can see with my decks, I don't have a lot of cards, like, at all. I'm still very much just picking up packs and being like, ooh, I like this. Like, there's the white cards that I recently picked up with some of my points. I recently picked up a bunch of those legacy packs, which didn't give me jack. But yeah, my collection is very tiny compared to a lot of accounts. I do not have a lot of archetypes But there are some things that I'm looking into to try out, like these ghost tricks. I think they're super cute, and I like the fact that they have nonsense going back into face down defense position. I personally used to really like flip effects, and it kind of reminds me of that. There's these fluffles, which are these cute little dolls with these crazy fiend monsters that turn into nightmarish death traps with fusion effects. I'm interested in trying that out, but as you can see, I need more cards to finish this build in particular. And the other thing that I've been trying out is the zombie deck. This is basically 3 copies of the structure deck just slapped together, and I was just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna try this out, but I haven't had as much success with it as I have with Dragon Maid. But yeah, I also have the structure deck for the Black Wings to try them again, and the Salamangreat to try to figure out how the hell Link decks work, because I'm still struggling very much to understand how on earth a Salamangreat deck works and exactly why I'd want to play it. But we're getting there. Anyways, so this is just going to be the beginning of me re-exploring Yu-Gi-Oh! Through Master Duel. And the early days are going to be me going through these solo stories, because Master Duel has this really cool solo experience where you can get to know how to play the basics, and then a few more advanced tips, the dual restart and dual training. And then they have these stories about each of the archetypes you can actually play through, and it's super exciting, and it gives me a chance to revisit some of my favorite archetypes from the past. And even though I've completed it, I figured we'd start off with Monarchs, but that's not what this video is going to do. We're going to have a series where I go through the solo stories of Master Duel and just play through the campaign and try my best to understand how these new decks work. But I wanted to do first is I actually wanted to go through a few of my replays of my very, very early games to just try to give you an idea of how Yu-Gi-Oh! Works and my thought process and what I'm learning as I play. So without further ado, let's get into some replays of me and my my Dragon Maid decks. So our first game was one of the earliest games that I played on the account, and this was one of the first experiences where I feel like I truly understood what the Dragon Maids were doing, and this is a big reason I wanted to showcase it, not only because it was one of the first games I played, but also just because it was, in my opinion, a pretty good showing of how Yu-Gi-Oh! Works. So if you've never played Dragon Maids, like I said earlier, you summon them, they have an effect, and then in the battle phase you can trade the smaller ones for bigger Dragon Maids, so you can just keep pounding away at your opponent with this big, oppressive legion of maids that also happen to be dragons. So we've got a pretty good hand here. We've got the Parlor Dragon Maid, which is great for starting the tempo for the Dragon Maids. You play her, you send any Dragon Maid from your deck to the graveyard, which then you can use her in the battle phase to basically put her back in your hand, and then put whatever big dragon you put into your graveyard onto the battlefield and just start wailing away at them. We've also got the Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, which is normally a pretty good card, but because we only have one dragon monster, we're just going to be using this card as material for the Dragon Maid changeover. This is our fusion spell, so we can get our big boss monster, Shio, which we will do more detail about her when we get to her. But know that for this opening hand, I'm like, alright, I know what I want to do. I want to play Dragon Maid Parlor. I'm going to put something in the graveyard. I'm going to Dragon Maid changeover to get my big boss monster out, and this is just going to be awesome. So we go right into it, and that's exactly what I do. I use the Parlor Dragon Maid to put Tink Heck into the graveyard. As you can see, it's a very big, hefty dragon, and during the battle phase, I can special summon any level 8 Dragon Maid monster from my hand or graveyard and put this thing back into my hand. So basically, she changes into the Tink Heck, which is just a big beater, and if it's in your hand, you can discard it, so that way you can do the whole tempo thing with Dragon Maids, which is put cards in graveyard and then trade them for bigger cards in battle phase. So we do that, and then we go immediately into the changeover. I'm going to be using the Metal Dragon, the Parlor Maid, whose ability I've already used, to get out the big boss monster, Dragon Maid Shio, which this is a beefy card. There is a lot of nonsense on this card. It's got a crazy stat line. During each standby phase, you can special summon any dragon level 9 or lower Dragon Maid, which is pretty much all of them, from your graveyard or hand. And if your opponent activates an effect, you get the quick effect to negate the activation. and destroy that card. It's any card or effect. So if they play a spell, a trap, they use a monster ability, you can put her back in your fusion deck to negate it and destroy it, and then you immediately have her change into her maid form, which is the House Dragon Maid, if I could remember how this stupid controls work on here, which is this girl right here, which also lets you special summon Dragon Maids by basically allowing you to put them back in your hand and get their whole process going, but she's not nearly as good as Shio. She basically exists to help keep your summoning going and your tempo going, while Shio is there to basically be the queen of the castle and just stop your opponent from playing their nonsense. If you don't know what a quick effect is, basically, in Yu-Gi-Oh! How it works is that only certain cards can react to other cards, which would be, you can only use certain cards on your opponent's turn, like quick play spells or traps, and quick effects allow you to interact on your opponent's turn or whenever you want in response to certain nonsense. So this ability to negate stuff is very, very powerful, because I can do it basically whenever I want. With that in mind, I go ahead and set my 2 cards. Just Cataclysm is just there to get rid of a smaller Dragon Maid for 2 of their cards, and this is a nice way of protecting our Dragon Maids, but you'll see what happens with this card in a minute. So, immediately on their standby phase, I bring back the Parlor, and we put in another big, nasty dragon, which is Ernest, which is a level 7. I can't summon her with Parlor, but I can summon her with other smaller Dragon Maids in the deck. So as you can see, they're all about setting up your big, powerful combat phase where you just get everything in the graveyard, and then you go, surprise, we're all big, scary dragons, and you're dead. Which is basically what they want to do. But my opponent does something kind of crazy and plays Gamma Seal the Sea Turtle Kaiju. Now, until very recently, I didn't know this was a card, and I was very confused on why their monster was on my side of the board. But then I remembered a certain card from the past, many years ago, called Lava Golem, which is a card that lets you tribute your opponent's monsters to put it on their field, and during their standby phase, it burns them for a bunch of damage. From what I understand after playing this game, the Kaijus are very similar to that, except instead of burning your opponent for damage, you contribute stuff on their board to give them one big Kaiju, and the idea was that you gave them a Kaiju so that you could special summon a Kaiju, and you could have this big, crazy Kaiju battle like in the movies. And I personally think that is a hilarious idea. And I really, really want to try this deck for myself because I'm a Kaiju fan, but for the purpose of this game, most of the time Kaijus are untargeted removal for big scary cards that can negate your stuff, like, you know, my boss monster. So basically what they've done is they've gotten rid of my card for a slightly less big card so that they can play their nonsense without interruption. And I'm like, okay. So at the end of my turn, I see they're playing 2 face-down cards, and I know it, and I can see this. I have read it, and it doesn't really scare me in the moment because I don't know what the hell a Tearlament is at this moment in time. Afterwards, I've done my research, and I feel bad not getting rid of this card. But as you can see, we're gonna get rid of these 2 face-down cards because I'm an old Yu-Gi-Oh player. Face-down cards are scary. So I'm like, all right, we're doing Guard Dragon Cataclysm. I only have 1 dragon. 2 is tribute to it, which is my Parlor Dragon Maid, so she's gonna die, and these 2 cards are just gonna take a nice little dirt nap. Bye-bye. And as you can see, my opponent is playing Tearlaments. Now, if you don't know anything about Tearlaments, this is basically what they do. They take cards from their deck and put them in their graveyard, and do nonsense shenanigans with it. I found out after this game, Tearlaments are a Tier 0 deck, meaning they're one of the most powerful decks in the entire game. And I was like, But to make you even more confused, this isn't just a Tearlament deck, because if you can see in our opponent's graveyard, they've got this card, which just lets them do nonsense with Tearlaments, but they've also got this, and as you can clearly read, that is not a Tearlament, that is a Shatal, and I don't know why they're playing this. Why are we doing Shatals and Tearlaments? I don't know. Shatals are not a graveyard-focused deck. They're a deck about fusion summoning big, scary, doll-like monsters. So I'm like, okay, is my opponent just kind of playing put-together nonsense? And I don't have anything better to do, so I just decided, you gave me a big sea turtle, I'm gonna beat you in with it. And Sangan here has a nice little time enjoying me just attacking my opponent brutally. And Gameciel, the big old sea turtle kaiju, the downside of playing him is that if you don't have anything to, like, stop Gameciel, he can keep just kind of beating the crap out of you. Now my opponent plays a new card, which is Nini the Mirror Mikanko. And now I'm very confused. I have seen the word Tearlament, I have seen the word Shadal, and now we're seeing Mikanko. Now, what the hell is Mikanko? I have no idea. All I know is the card looks kind of cool. I thought she had a party hat for a second. Those are big ears. It's not two party hats, even though, in my opinion, it would be much funnier if this chick in a tutu had two party hats on her head that were teal. Mikankos, as you can see, have some nonsense with equip cards. And during your opponent's turn, if this card would, if it's equipped with a card, it can't be destroyed by battle. If your opponent takes any battle damage you would have taken from battles involving this card. During your opponent's turn, while it's equipped with a equip card, you can basically take control of it. Mikankos do nonsense with equip spells, and I'm like, okay? So I'm like, alright, cool. We're just gonna do some nonsense. We're gonna play the Chamber Dragon Maid. I don't know what Mikanko and Tearlaments and Shadal have in common, but I know what my deck does, which is Dragon Maid nonsense. So Chamber Dragon Maid allows me to take any spell or trap that is a Dragon Maid spell or trap from the deck and add it to my hand just to keep the tempo going. And it's, you know, we've already got two big dragons, and I'm gonna bring back Tinghek with the Chamber Dragon Maid at the start of the battle phase, and I'm just gonna smash into them with two big scary dragons. Then my opponent uses this card. Now, a lot of modern-day Yu-Gi-Oh! Players know what an Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring is. I did not going into this. I have since picked up 3 of these because this card is bonkers. Basically, it's a monster that you can activate when your opponent does any of these things and just negate the effect. And I'm like, what? Basically, what this card allows you to do is stop your opponent from sending cards from the deck to the graveyard, special summoning from the deck, or adding cards from the deck to the hand. This basically stops your opponent from doing anything from the deck, you know, like taking a spell or trap from your deck into your hand. And I'm like, okay, when did they release monsters you could activate to negate effects? Because that's a pretty powerful ability. Because 12 years ago, that really wasn't a thing except for, like, maybe Effect Veiler? But even then, Effect Veiler wasn't, like, that big. I still don't even understand how Effect Veiler works. Anyways, so Ash Blossom is going to completely negate my chamber search. And I'm like, how dare you? I am searching these bed chambers for traps because I am trying to protect myself from your nefarious nonsense. So anyways, they cancel my ability, and I'm like, alright, you've had enough fun there, buddy. I'ma have fun now, and I play Dragon Maid Send-Off. Now what this does is it allows me to target any Dragon Maid I control. Special summon a different Dragon Maid from my hand onto the battlefield in defense position, and return the Dragon Maid you targeted originally back to your hand. And remember, every time we summon a Dragon Maid, something happens. So we summon a smaller Dragon Maid, we want to put it back in our hands so we can summon them again to keep the nonsense train going. And what do you know it? I have a very big, angry Dragon Maid in my hand named Nudyarl. But wait, folks, there's more. So we're gonna send off this Dragon Maid, and I'm like, alright, bozo, I'll see you later. You may negate my effect, but I'm still gonna be using my dang card anyways. But before we do that, I'm going into the graveyard, because guess what, folks? Not cards, when they go to the graveyard, don't just go there and go away forever. Some of them have effects in the graveyard, like our handy-dandy Dragon Maid Changeover. If it's in the graveyard, we can target a Dragon Maid we control, put that back, put this spell back into your hand, and put the Dragon Maid you targeted back into your hand as well. So we're going to take this Nudyarl, and we're going to go, alright, you had your fun, but I need you back in my hand. Get back over here. And then we immediately go back into Dragon Maid Changeover, which was the right thing to do. I was about to say it's a mistake because I didn't normal summon, but this all started because I tried to normal summon Chamber Dragon Maid. If you didn't know, you can do 1 normal summon per turn and as many special summons as you'd like, because Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a crazy game like that. So I can't just replay Dragon Maid, the Chamber Dragon Maid out of my hand. Gosh, why can't I talk right now? I'm getting excited. Sorry. So I can't play any of these cards in my hand, but I can use them for everybody's favorite boss monster, Dragon Maid Shio, who can resummon my Dragon Maids on either standby phase, and she gets the ability to negate your nonsense and change into her human form, which you're going to be seeing in a second. So we use this, and for some reason they don't take any battle damage. I'm not quite sure why, even going back into this. Oh, well, reading the cards explains the cards. Lo and behold, folks, if you read the damn cards, they explain exactly what they do. Didn't know if you knew that. No way! Anyways, I misread this, and I thought only when it was equipped it couldn't take any you didn't take battle damage whenever this card was attacked, but it's when it's not equipped. So because it's not equipped, Gamma Seal doesn't do anything, because normally if you have two monsters in attack, if your monster attacks another attack position monster with more attack, their monster dies and they take damage equals to the difference. So my opponent should have 100 life points left, but because of their little crazy party hat tutu girl over there, it's not happening like that. So I can't finish the game off yet. But this game is pretty much over, because I've got a negate online that I'm going to use to literally whatever they do. But first, on their standby phase, let's bring back that Chamber Dragon Maid. Hey, remember that card that I wanted out of my deck? I'm getting it anyways. So they play this nonsense, which, it took me a minute to read this. And I'm like, okay, so this card, the equipped monster can't be destroyed by card effects. Okay. What are they going to do that equips it to my stuff? And at first I was like, alright, I don't need to worry about this card. They're going to equip it, my stuff can't be destroyed. But then I did the thing that I just said to do, which was important, you know, reading the cards. During your main phase, you can special summon a Makonko monster from your hand or deck, with a different original name than the equipped monster. And I don't know if you know this, none of my monsters are named Makonko nothing. I got, maybe Shio was a Makonko in like an alternate universe, but it's not this one. So I'm like, alright, you had your fun there, buddy, but I don't know if this is your last play or not, but it's time for Shio to do her thing. You may have tributed her before, but now she's going to do her nonsense. We are going to use her ability to Nagate the Makonko Water Arabesque. And what happens when you do that is Shio negates the ability, destroys it, and then brings out her human form, House Dragon Maid, which can also special summon Dragon Maids by bouncing your other Dragon Maids on the field. So she's like a lighter version of her big scary dragon version, which isn't that great, but it's good for maintaining tempo. She's big stats. She makes Blue Eyes kind of scared. And at this rate, my opponent has lost the ability to summon their cards. They have one card left in hand. Who knows what that could be, and they can't do their nonsense with tier limits, and they do the only thing they're allowed to do at this point, which is give up. And that is how I won this game against this absolutely wacky deck. And I know what you're thinking. Okay, it can't have been that bad, because they used Tearlaments, Makonko, and Shadal, right? This is some wacky jank deck, right? Well, give me a second, I didn't mean to do that. So as you can see, after certain games, you can go into the aftermath of the game to find out what your opponent was playing, which I think is a nice little feature that Master Duel allows you to do to try to give you an idea of something fun to play in the future potentially. But as you can see here, we've got some Cyframe drivers, we've got some Synchrons, we've got whatever the hell this thing is. These Gammas I've heard are really, really powerful, and I believe they're made to put him out so you can do some nonsense with Synchros. But as you can see here, we've got Diviner of the Herald, Ash Blossom, but we've also got some more Tearlament nonsense, even though that is just the same card. But yeah, my opponent is mostly running what looks like a Tearlament engine to get their nonsense going, and they have a Tearlament Cashier with just a little bit of Shadal. It's a deck that seems really, really wacky, but it was mostly Tearlaments, it looks like, in my experience. So I was pretty happy to beat a very top tier archetype, even though this deck might not have been. So getting into our second game, I'm not gonna lie to you, this is a pretty short game, and at this point in time I was using a very, very different deck, and this was a very jarring experience what's about to happen here. So as you can see, this time I am playing Les Zombies. And zombies, like in most formats of any game they want to play or card game, they send stuff to the graveyard so that they can do nonsense from the graveyard. Is basically how you need to understand what zombies do. I also have 3 copies of this structure deck as well. I kind of threw this together watching somebody else's YouTube video. I believe it was Converged Gaming was his name. Anyways, with all this nonsense, I'm like, alright, I'm going first. I'm playing Zombie World. Now, Zombie World has a fun effect. All monsters on the field in the graveyard become zombies, and nobody contributes them in anything except zombies. So, basically how this reads is, if you're not playing zombies, you can't tribute summon from the hand, because everything else is a zombie. And if you don't have zombies in your hand, you can't tribute summon them for them. And we just make up for this by just playing zombies. So we go ahead and we activate Chang-Chi Spirito, so we can send 1 monster from our hand. Wait, what? Why did I discard this again? Oh, right, my bad. I was discarding Chang-Chi for the cost of Jack-a-Bolon, which you can discard a monster to special summon it from your hand. It's a pretty beefy boy, so we put this guy in defense. Man, I have never seen this guy's artwork this up close because my phone screen's pretty tiny. I am absolutely in love with this crazy looking zombie. So anyways, we play the Jack-a-Bolon, and I'm like, alright, cool. So we play Unizombie. Unizombie has some other nonsense, but I can't really do anything with it. So I'm like, alright. So I got a tuner. Now, if you know anything about Yu-Gi-Oh!, if you have a tuner and a non-tuner, you can bond them together, kind of like we did with the fusions, the fusion card for Dragon Mates, to create a new type of monster, which is called a Synchro monster. And negative synchro, you need to meet certain conditions. Most of the time it'll tell you what you need. And for the cards in our deck, we need 1 zombie tuner and 1 non-zombie tuner, whose level equals whatever the level of the card is we're trying to summon. And the level is the star right there. So in this case, we have thrown away, as I completely failed to use the interface, a 3 and a 10. So we are going to summon one of the biggest zombies in our deck, Red Eyes Zombie Dragon Lord, which is another one of our boss monsters. During your opponent's turn, as a quick effect, you can take any zombie from any graveyard and special summon it. And if it's in your graveyard, you can banish zombies to special summon it. It's a very nice way to just do nonsense on our opponent's turn. I just wanted to play my big boss monster because I'm like, dude, this thing is sick. I mean, like, just look at how freaking crazy this thing looks, as I completely forget how the interface works again. Like, look at this crazy, fiery, shadowy nightmare. Alright, so my opponent plays Trade-In. Now, I actually recognize this card. It's a very old card. You discard 1 level 8 monster and draw 2 cards. And they're going to be discarding this Divine Dragon Lord Felgrand. If it's special summoned from the graveyard, you can target 1 monster your opponent controls or in their graveyard, banish it, and if you do, this thing gains attack and defense equal to the banished monster's original level and or rank. Basically, what they want to do is they want to get this in the graveyard to special summon it to get rid of my cards. Now, with this time, I can't really do anything, or at least I don't think I can. No, it has to be your graveyard. So I use Red Eye Zombie Lord, and I bring back the Jack-o'-Bolon. And I'm like, cool. I'm doing zombie nonsense. Now, at this point, what I'm thinking to myself is, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up another big, crazy Synchro play next turn, because I'm going to use Jack-Bolon to get back the Unizombie, or even Chang-Chi, and I'm just going to relentlessly beat my opponent into the ground. But they use their trade-in, they draw their 2 cards, and they use another trade-in, and I'm like, now hold on here. They really like their graveyard. Now, I don't know what Galactic Spiral Dragon does, but I've noticed that they have now gotten rid of 2 level 8 dragons from their graveyard. So I'm reading their cards and I'm like, yo, if I take this, I can target an opponent, a card they control, in their field or graveyard, like that card they just threw away, and banish it. So I'm like, dude, what if I just steal this Felgrand and then banish the other monster, and then they can't res anything? And my opponent sees this, and after I steal their dragon, they just give up. And that's my experience with zombies. Alright, so for our last game, we're going to be going back into our Dragon Maids. But I'm going to be using a build that I've been trying to test and understand myself, which is going to be the Dragon Maid branded. So as you saw in that first game, we're going to be playing that deck that allows us to play cards to basically set up big crazy tempo plays and just beat our opponent with big dragons. However, this deck has a nice little bit of spice to it because it also runs the quote-unquote branded dragons, which all come from this Fallen of Albaz card and these Despia cards. Now, the branded dragons, a lot like Shio, are these big, terrifying, powerful fusion dragons that have all sorts of crazy effects, but the main one you want to be scared of is Mirror Jade, the Ice Blade Dragon. This thing is gigantic and it is crazy. And the thing about the Banded Dragons is they can actually chain together fusions to get this card out and also get cards into your graveyard that you can potentially summon later with all sorts of nonsense and shenanigans. But the main one you want to get out is Mirror Jade. He's this big dude that can banish stuff, and if he's destroyed, your opponent's stuff is destroyed at the end of the turn. So here we go with branded Dragon Maids, and my opponent is on a Red Eyes deck. If you've never heard of Red Eyes Fly Dragon, it is one of the oldest monsters in the entire game. It's this big boy right here. Now, by himself, he's not a very intimidating monster. His stat line is very okay, but he doesn't have any abilities. But the thing about this Red Eyes deck is it hyper-focuses on using this card to produce an engine that your opponent just can't deal with. So, my opponent then decides to play Noctovision Dragon, which allows them to, I guess, special summon it if you have a dark monster. Or you can special summon it and I guess use that as like a tempo play, but he has no attack, so I'm assuming they're going to be doing some nonsense with this. And I'm like, okay. So they're getting rid of 2 level 7 dragons. What's happening? They're playing the Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon. Like I said, these monsters have a way of using Red Eyes to power bigger, scarier monsters. And as you saw with Noctovision Dragon, it's a level 7 monster. My opponent had the Red Eyes, which is another level 7 monster, which allows them to summon another special type of card called an XYZ monster. I've heard they're called Xyz? I don't know. It's a weird name. But as long as you have 2 level 7 monsters, you can combine them underneath it to... You basically stack both of the cards on top of each other, and then this thing on top, and it becomes its own special monster summon. It cannot be destroyed by card effects while it has material, which the 2 cards you stacked underneath it are considered its material. And, well, this has any material. Each time your opponent activates a card or effect, inflict damage to your opponent's life points immediately. And once per turn, you can detach the material and target your Red Eyes in your graveyard, special summon it. And when you detach it, it sends to the graveyard. So basically, you can detach your Red Eyes and summon a Red Eyes and still have material to make this thing have all sorts of nonsense. It's a pretty scary card. And then my opponent, for some reason, activates this, which gives their monster more attack, but it's... oh wait, no, it's permanent. It's a permanent boost, that's why. So what happens is they equipped this card to their Red Eyes, and now their Red Eyes can't be destroyed by card effects. Every time I play something, it's burning down my life points, and it is a big chunky boy. And I'm like, well, shit. How do I really interact with this? So the first thing I do is what I always do. I play Chamber Dragon Maid. And in this branded Dragon Maid deck, this is actually a very critical card, because Chamber Dragon Maid allows you to search the Dragon Maid changeover. Remember this card? It allows us to fusion summon Dragon Fusion monsters. Now, reread the card. That's not just Shio. That is any Dragon Fusion monster. And guess what the branded monsters are? Dragons. So this Red Eyes Metal Dragon's gonna burn us, Sangan's gonna freak out, and White Baking over here is gonna cook. Don't mind him. He's let him cook. Let him cook. Anyway, so we're gonna use Dragon Maid Changeover. We're gonna get rid of Despia and the Fallen of Albaz to summon Luperion, the Searing Dragon, which is this big, crazy light dragon. I thought he was dark because you used dark monsters to make him. Whatever. If he's fusion summoned like he just was, you discard a card to fusion summon any level 8 or lower fusion monster from your extra deck except Luperion by shuffling fusion materials listed on the card into the deck from the field, graveyard, or banish sounds. For the rest of the turn, you can't attack, and also you can't special summon monsters in the extra deck except fusion monsters. Which is fine because our entire game plan is around fusioning. So basically, we use the Fallen of Albaz to bring out Lubellion, who is going to just give us a little bit of damage, but Lubellion allows us to immediately go into one of the most terrifying monsters in this game, and also Despian Tragedy activates. If it sends it to the graveyard like it just was for this fusion summon, you can add a Despian monster from your hand, or from your deck to your hand, which is, it's a play we can make. For us, what we want to get is this Aluber, the Jester of Despia, who allows us to get back any, search any branded spell or trap from our deck to our hand, and if a face-up fusion monster is destroyed by battle or leaves the opponent's card field because of an opponent's card effect, you can take this card from the graveyard. You can target a one effect monster your opponent controls, special summon this card, and if you do, negate the targeted monster's effect. Basically, what this allows us to do is protect our big, crazy, it's any fusion monster, including Shio, which I didn't realize until now. Allows us to protect our stuff and also search for our stuff. So they're going to burst a little bit more, but Lubellion is going to put Lubellion and Fallen of Albaz back into the extra deck in the main deck and bring out the Mirror Shade, the Ice Blade Dragon. And like I said before, he's kind of hard to get out normally, but what he does is insane. You can only control one of them at a time, but once per turn, you can send one fusion monster from your extra deck to the graveyard that mentions Fallen of Albaz. Remember that little twink I was telling you about? That's like the core of the entire branded strategy. As material from the extra deck to the graveyard, and you banish anything on the board. Also, this card cannot use this effect next turn, which doesn't really matter in this duel, I don't believe. It's been a minute since I played this game. It's been a few days. Basically, what this allows us to do is if it's destroyed, if this fusion of a monster's card is in its owner's control, leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, you can destroy all monsters your opponent controls. Basically, what it allows you to do is banish something, and if it gets destroyed, blow up your opponent's monsters. And in this instance, we're going to be using his effect to target the Red Eyes. Now I know what you're thinking, wait, that doesn't work. Remember, clearly the card says it can't be destroyed as long as it's got material. It's still got two materials, Ghost. What you doing? Well, that's the thing. Banishing isn't destruction. Now we're gonna get burned a little bit here, but Ice Blade's gonna go, alright, see you later. Because banishing, that doesn't say destroy, that says banished. You don't go to the graveyard with this, you go to the no-no zone. Straight to the no-no zone with your nonsense card. And now we're no longer to be burned, and we have completely wrecked the first turn of their game plan. They go ahead and get this Red Eyes Black Meteor Dragon, which is there to get more Red Eyes nonsense going. And I'm like, alright, cool, we're gonna play Dragon Maid Welcome, which allows us to buff all of our monsters for all of our Dragon Maids, which gives us even more synergy between the Dragon Maids and the branded monsters. We use Changeover, put the Chamber Dragon Maid back in our hand, we use both of our other Dragon monsters, and we summon our other big boss monster, the House Dragon Maid. Now, she's not as good as Shio. We can't summon her, we don't have a big dragon in our hand, we just have the two smaller dragons, but she's pretty good. She's got big beefy stats, and on our turn she gives us access to more Dragon Maids. Now with this instance, it's just for more beats. We're gonna do a nice 6,200 damage, almost at 1,000. And remember what that effect that we did with Mirror Jade, where we sent something from our extra deck to the graveyard? Well, as it turns out, the card that we sent was Spindrit, the Iron Dash Dragon, which is this crazy looking jet thing. And the thing is, if it's sent to the graveyard from anywhere, thanks to a card effect, you can add to your hand or special summon a Springens monster, which doesn't matter for us, or a Fallen of Albaz. Meaning that Fallen of Albaz that we played earlier is now back. And a fun thing about our deck, we have another card that trades its name for Fallen of Albaz that we can use to fusion our big branded monsters with Dragon Maid Changeover, and then after we get to Mirror Jade, we get rid of one of our few dragons from our extra deck that brings back a Fallen of Albaz, and we get that big scary dragon instead, so it just maintains a bunch of tempo. Now in this situation, my opponent's like, alright, I gotta do something here. So they send a Summon Skull to their graveyard, They played this dragon to get out the Dark Armed Dragon of Annihilation. Now, how they did this, I'm not quite sure. If we read a little bit, you can banish, add 1 red eyes. Yeah. So they have 1 level 7 monster here, but they need 2 or more level 7 monsters? How did they play this? How did they play this? Hang on. Technical difficulties. Banish this card to your graveyard, add a red eyes. Fusion from your deck to your hand. It's... what? What? How did they... I'm sorry, I'm having a meltdown here. How did they summon this monster? They need 2 level 7 monsters. They had 1. Oh! Read the card explains the cards. Remember that thing we said earlier? Yeah, that's important. Red Eyes Dark Armed Dragon can be summoned as long as there are exactly 5 dark monsters in your graveyard with 1 level 5 or higher dark monster. And you can detach it, target a card your opponent controls, and destroy it. And then banish 1 card from your graveyard. Basically, the reason he could summon this, which took me a second because I had to reread this card, was because he had 5 dark monsters in his graveyard, which was the Summoned Skull, the Black Metal Dragon, the Red Eyes, the Nocto Vision, and the Blackstone of Legend, which allowed him to summon this card cheaper, which I didn't know at the time, and now I look really silly not knowing now. But anyways, they're going to use their Dark Armed Dragon, get rid of their monster, to destroy my Mirror Trade Dragon. Which, remember, when it dies, when it's sent, when it leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, as long as it's in its owner's control, at the end phase, Dead Man Switch. So its ability goes off and my opponent's like, I'm not worried about that. I'm going to use my Blackstone Legend. I'm going to put Red Eyes back in my deck. And I'm going to go ahead and play Red Eyes. And then I'm going to use that because it's a tuner. My bad, they made a Link monster. They made Predaplant Verte Anaconda. So what they did was they did a Link summon, which is another very wacky kind of summon. Now I know I've said 3 or 4 different summons in the course of this video. That's just how Yu-Gi-Oh works now. I remember when synchros, fusions, and rituals were the most complicated things. They decided, oh dude, we're gonna add 4 more things to the mix. So Link monsters do this weird Link thing where you take 2 of your effect monsters, you send them to the graveyard like a synchro, and then you play them in this zone up here, which is essentially the like extra monster zone. And they always come out with some crazy effect, but the crazy thing about Link monsters is they don't have levels, they have links instead, and on top of that, they have no defense because they cannot be put into defense position or face down defense position because they have no defense. It's a very weird quirk about them, and they're the newest kind of monsters that Yu-Gi-Oh has released in the past few years, and I'm still struggling to understand how they work. Don't worry, there's another even more complicated monster type in this game, which we're not going to get into until much later, because screw pendulums, I don't understand them, and I don't think I ever will. Anyways, so Predaplant Verte Anaconda, which is a really, really sick looking card, even though it kind of scares me. You can target 1 face-up monster on the field that becomes dark. You can pay 2,000 life points and send 1 fusion or polymerization, normal or quick play spell from your deck to the graveyard. And then it basically fuses anything using a fusion spell from your deck. And what do they grab? Do we see that yet? No, they didn't. So they turn our monster into a dark monster with Predaplant, and then they don't use the fusion. And then it blows up and dies. Because of my Mirror Jade, which I don't know if they forgot. I thought they were like, I don't know. Even with Predaplant on board, unless they have something in their hand, they can't really protect this. I don't really know what this plan was. Normally you play Verte Anaconda to do a big fusion and then mess up your opponent, but they just didn't. I don't really know why. So yeah, we're gonna go to our turn now. And we're just going to play Aluber, the Jester of Despia, which is this absolutely wacky looking squid man. I can't tell if, like, I think they're a clown. It says they're a jester, but they look more like freaking Launch Octopus from Mega Man. Anyways, let's just get a branded spell from our deck, which is going to be our 1 copy of Branded Fusion. which is the way you're supposed to branded summon your monsters. But remember, we got our Dragon Maid changeover, so we can do some nonsense. So now we're going to branded fusion. We're going to fusion summon one fusion monster that mentions Fallen of Albaz as material from our extra deck, using 2 monsters from your hand. You can't special summon anything from the extra deck except fusion monsters. We are now going to get back using a Looper and the Fallen of Albaz. Big old Bellion. Remember that thing we did the first time around when we played the Bellion? We're gonna do the exact same nonsense again. Look who's back. Ho ho ho! It's everybody's favorite Space Godzilla looking son of a gun. We're gonna use this, bounce our House Dragon Maid back to our hand. I'm not quite sure why I did this at the time. I probably shouldn't have. I probably should have kept all my aggro. But hey, I got my fusion back in case some nonsense happened. And that is the end of this very weird experiment using branded Dragon Maids together. That did not sound right. So as you can see, I have had a very wild experience coming back into Yu-Gi-Oh! Through Master Duel. Now I know this video seems kind of all over the place. We got duel replays, we got me talking about my history with Yu-Gi-Oh! And kind of giving you a spoiler of what I'm going to do in the future, but I'm not going to lie, I don't really have a plan for this video. I just really wanted to record something with Master Duel, because I can play it, and it's like playing a brand new card game. Yu-Gi-Oh! For me is a weird topic. I got out of it 12 years ago because I just didn't really... I couldn't keep up with the price tag of decks, and I couldn't really keep up with the concepts. And I thought I'd never get back into Yu-Gi-Oh! I thought it'd forever be something that I was kind of gate-kept out of thanks to increasingly challenging concepts to understand, and that Yu-Gi-Oh!, as you can see, has become a crazy intricate game where you can do all sorts of crazy summons and combos, and there's so many weird interactions you have to relearn, especially if you haven't played in 12 years, but I'm excited to play it, and I just kind of wanted to share that experience. So maybe that's what this is. Maybe this is just me being really excited to get into a card game that I haven't played since I was really, really young. Anyways, thank you for tuning in to this kind of all over the place video. The next one will be a lot more focused, because next time we're going to talk about the other new thing that I've gotten to do in Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is this, the Ritual Fest. If you'd like to stick around for those, be sure to tune into the next episode. And for the future episodes, where we go through the entire solo campaign, each of the stories one by one, and try to clear them. Well, the ones I haven't done. I'm probably going to go back to the Monarch one because I like the Monarch one, just as kind of like a introduction to the concept, but yeah, that's just me. Thank you for tuning in. I'm sorry this is so chaotic. I'm sorry, I'm excited for Yu-Gi-Oh! So see you next time, folks.